This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? And welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you. And we got a banger for you today. Very quiet night in the National Hockey League, i.e. 0 games. But the Winnipeg Jets practice today down in Florida, getting ready for the Lightning tomorrow night. Ken Wiebe is going to join us from FLA coming up a little later on in the program. Of course, there's still lots of Bombers to talk about as the team cleaned out the locker room for the final time for the 2023 season. And we'll hear from Zach Collaros as well as Drew Brown on his future and Jackson Jeffcoat coming up in a few minutes. And then, kind of really dive into it a little bit more with Eddie Tait of BlueBombers.com coming up in the first hour of the program. And while there's no hockey tonight, there is a huge, huge game for our Canadian men's national team in soccer, hosting Jamaica after winning the first leg of their qualifier last week. So we'll finish up later on with a little visit from Gareth Wheeler, who'll be calling the game on One Soccer tonight. I'm really looking forward to that. So a very busy show. Great to have you all with us. Let's get Remis in here. But first, of course, a big thanks to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Our friends at Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, the Winnipeg Jets, Vita Health Fresh Market, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, Aquatech, and of course our friends at Modern Man Barbershop. Big shout out to everyone that has donated and helped our Movember campaign, and a special thank you to the WSTers who have been growing the Mows as part of Team WST. Let's get to it. Welcome to everybody in chat. Thanks for joining us. Shout out to the podcast listeners. And shout out to you, Michael Remis. What's up? Did you get a good quality rest after the craziness of Grey Cup and our travel day yesterday, coming in hot right into the show?
Yeah, waking up 6:30 or around 6 Eastern, leaving on 6:30, a flight, returning. It was a crazy day. It was almost like I was having dinner. I was like, man, I was in Hamilton this morning, but put the kids to bed, sat down on the couch, and dozed off. Not for very long. It was like 40 minutes. And then, I don't know, unpacked all my stuff. Got to do a lot of laundry. Got all this gear I need to put away. And then, I don't know, just contemplated the Grey Cup some more. I don't know, it's hard not to when I'm scrolling Twitter. And everyone's like, oh, what a great call by Rod Smith or Dusty on this pass from Fajardo. I'm like, great, thanks. It's pretty unavoidable here.
Well, and I joked earlier today that if anyone's having a Grey Cup hangover because they were totally invested in the Bombers or were in Hamilton for Grey Cup weekend, our pal Connor Hrabchak has done a great job of another bang-up edition of Winnipeg Jets Weekly for Winnipeg Sports Talk, which is live right now on our podcast feed and on the YouTube channel. So if you have not checked that out, or you've been upset and down about the Bombers, check that out, because obviously there's a lot of good things happening with the local hockey team that we can sort of get into. And, Connor's doing a great job on that. And Remis, I mean, I'm sure you would agree, if people haven't checked that out, they should. Not to mention, I always like to see who he's picking with the stars of the week. And obviously also teeing up what's a big week for the Jets as they get back out on the road after that 4-1 homestand last week.
Yeah, it wasn't pretty big for the Jets. We were kind of distracted being in Hamilton for the Grey Cup, so I did enjoy Connor putting that together. Check out on our YouTube channel or podcast. Just giving the rundown on what happened over the weekend with the sweep of Buffalo, Arizona, also the win against New Jersey. Kyle Connor's hot streak. Nemestikov Big shout out to him as well in there. I had him on in fantasy one night. So it was big week for the Jets, and big week upcoming on the road. Thankfully the Black Friday game is not in the afternoon in Minnesota. It is in the evening in Florida. So a nice week here for the Jets getting some sun.
Yeah, I'm pumped that game is an evening game, Friday night game. Love it. And we've got an NFL game on Friday afternoon. The first Black Friday game. Miami Dolphins against the New York Jets. The Jets have finally benched Zach Wilson, and they signed and activated Trevor Siemian, and I believe Tim Bowers is going to be... Tim Boyle. SK, Huss is back on the Diet Pepsi. This is actually water in a Diet Pepsi bottle.
Okay. Everyone thought you were drinking crystal clear Pepsi. No one believed it was Pepsi. Water.
Don't worry. I'm going back and forth. I do have a DP as well. But I figured being environmentally friendly, I just, recycled these bottles and use them as a water bottle right now. I'm needing to actually just drink a lot, it seems, to keep my voice up to get through these shows. Although, like you, Remis, listen, I crashed hard. I mean, we were straight up sheets to the streets yesterday, coming in hot to the show. I think anyone that saw, my voice isn't great, and I do have a flu or whatever. But I was, I woke up just in time for the football game last night. I said I was a game time decision to be going out. I wisely did not go out. I watched the game at home, and shout out to Leslie Mitchnuck, who was sharp enough to tweet at me at halftime. My team, sound familiar? My team up again, 17-7 at halftime, Remis? And then we know what happened in the second half of that game. Pretty good game. And I think the Chiefs defense showed that they are Super Bowl worthy. We know Mahomes is Mahomes. But my God, I have never seen a receiving group drop more perfect passes than the Chiefs have this year. And that MVS drop in the final 2 minutes of the game, which was a sure touchdown, was such a dagger. And then the craziest thing about it was, only Mahomes on 4th and 25 can create time and space, find a receiver, and put it into a spot that it should be caught. And Justin Watson dropped that as well. So the Chiefs really should be 9-1 right now. I'll give them, they played terrible against the Broncos and did not deserve to win that game. But the first game of the season was the Kadarius Toney game, where if he had just played DB and batted every ball thrown to him into the ground, they would have won. And then last night, that game was there for the taking. Mahomes did throw a pick. Kelsey had the red zone fumble. It wasn't perfect. But they'll be there in the end. 7-3 right now. Their schedule is pretty light for the rest of the way. So I think they still got a pretty good path to the number one seed again, and make that AFC Championship the Arrowhead Invitational, as Nick Wright says to it. But it was pretty eerie, Reem. 17-7. I was still getting haunted by the Grey Cup last night, even while watching the Chiefs and Eagles.
It's hard not to think about it. I know we're 2 days later and people don't want to, but the Bombers had such a great regular season. They had such a great team. They seemed to be really close, and they just came up short. And I'm scrolling Twitter, and I follow Montreal writers tweeting about the parade and seeing pictures of the players on the plane with the Grey Cup and highlights of the final drive. And it's unavoidable if you're on social media. What I've come to terms with is it doesn't really matter what happened for the first, 3 quarters and most of the fourth. The bottom line to me, Huss, is they had a chance to win the game. They had the ball. They needed a first down. They didn't get it. And then they allowed Cody Fajardo, who no one thought could get it done, drive, 70 yards, not for a touchdown in the dying seconds. And I said this to you before the show. This Cody Fajardo reminds me of Nick Foles winning the Super Bowl with the Eagles. I mean, he was cast off from the Riders. No one thought he could do it. And he was close to retiring. He said his wife talked him into returning. And here he is leading the Grey Cup winning drive. I don't know what he's going to be next year. I don't think he's going to be the player that you saw on that final drive. It'll probably be what we've seen. But when there were plays that needed to be made, he stepped up. And yeah, that 13-yard run will be one that we remember. Or, I don't know, Zach getting sacked on second down was definitely painful. But they had a chance to win. They didn't execute, and maybe a couple things could have done differently, like a couple turnovers early. But that doesn't matter. They had a chance, and they didn't execute when it mattered. And it is certainly disappointing. And I was curious to hear what some of the players had to say. And now we kind of look ahead to the future of the Bombers. Who comes back? Ed tweeted out this list of free agents. It's almost like, who isn't a free agent with the Bombers? Dembski and Collaros, we know, but
Big Hill,
yeah. So
and we don't. I'm not even sure that Big Hill entirely comes back. Based on listen, he's very successful outside of football. Has been working towards that. The guy's such a warrior. I highly doubt he wants to go out that way. And I certainly think he still has some good football left in him, but. There is so much uncertainty about where this team goes. It's very, very different than 12 months ago. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. We'll hear from some comments from Zach Collaros, Drew Brown, Jackson Jeffcoat, and then we'll talk about it with Eddie Tait before Ken joins us from Florida to get it done. Yeah, listen, Cody got it done, man. He deserves all the accolades that he's getting right now because that truly was a legendary CFL Grey Cup drive to win the game, not leave any time on the board for the Bombers to do anything to come back. I still can't believe it happened, but it did. And again, much like I said last week that I was nervous because I was so confident that the Bombers could and should and would win that game. That's why they play the games. And he authored an incredible story. And listen, it's great for the league. It's great for Montreal, for that franchise. It just sucks for us here in the Peg and sucks for the Bombers. I did see Kyle just mention the rant, that Marc-Antoine Decroix. We didn't talk about that too much yesterday. The only thing I'll say about that is that the WWE should be on the phone to that dude. Because the second that he is done playing football, he should get into pro wrestling because that was the best promo I have heard. Football, WWE, AEW, or otherwise in a long time. But hey, listen, before we get to these clips from the Bomber Room Ream, I was absolutely stunned today to find out that there's no NHL games tonight and none again on Thursday.
Well, Thursday's Thanksgiving, and I think they've traditionally not had games, but I was looking at the...
How do we not have a Canadian team or two playing?
So this is what Jeff Merrick tweeted out, as everyone is looking for something to do tonight, and there's only to realize there are no games. A number of games last night, including the Oilers losing again, which has been entertaining for everyone. But Jeff Merrick tweeting out, no NHL games tonight, here's why. There are only 3 teams with the building available to host tonight: Vancouver, Calgary, and Arizona. Canadian teams get sent to the U.S. this week for Thanksgiving evening and Black Friday because American teams request home games. Arizona didn't want to play back-to-back home games Tuesday and Wednesday, and 12 teams playing Wednesday, Friday, Saturday can't schedule a Tuesday, or that would have been 4 games in 5 nights. And the 4 teams who went to Sweden are not available. I see that, those teams are playing like 1-2 games this week. I guess that makes sense. Who cares if Arizona didn't want to play back-to-back home games? The Jets just did that and won both of them. So there should be a game tonight, even if it's one. I think missed opportunity. What else is on the schedule? I guess we'll watch NBA tonight, Huss?
Well, I'm going to be watching Canada-Jamaica. Huge game for the men's national team. And we'll touch on that for a few minutes with Gareth Wheeler a little bit later on. But yeah, and to be honest, maybe I'll just get some more sleep and try and get over this bug and be ready to go for what is one of my favorite weeks of the year. And for so long, we'd be on the road wherever the Grey Cup was doing the show. And that Thursday of Grey Cup week was Turkey Day with all the NFL action. Now with the Grey Cup being a week earlier, it's here. I might come by and get the kit, Reem, and I may take the show on the road on Thursday. I would like to be maybe at a BP somewhere doing the program. I'm not sure if I can turn that around quick enough to make it happen, considering how I'm feeling. But that would be a nice addition to the Thursday show, doing it from doing it on location and watching the games. All that being said, let's quickly touch on this before we get to these Bomber clips. So we're getting a World Cup? Well, no, not really. Like, I'm here for any sort of best on best, but what we're hearing from the National Hockey League, is reported by Sportsnet and Greg Wyshynski, is a very, very kind of small, watered-down version of it that I'm not sure we would be able to call best on best. However, if you're going to give me the best of Canada, the best of USA, best of Sweden, best of Finland, I will take it in advance of the Olympics.
Yeah, so they've been trying to do this international tournament forever. The last one was the 2016 World Cup, which kind of was I thought was made a bit of it was good hockey, but I don't think anyone took it seriously as a best on best because they had these fake teams, Team North America under 23 and Team Europe. And it seems like, you see baseball, they figured out with the World Baseball Classic. NBA has their, they've international competition. Soccer, it's built in. And even football has getting in on the Summer Olympics. A lot of guys saying, we haven't even talked about it much here, but that flag football in a couple years. And hockey.
Mahomes getting the gold medal.
I mean, they've been arguing so much about who's going to pay and who's going to get all the money for this that they've just lost out. A whole generation of players haven't played. So what they're proposing here is some type of half-ass international competition, four-nation tournament, USA, Canada, Sweden, Finland. It will not be called the World Cup of Hockey, but they got to do something because they're falling behind. Players want this, and they're really trying to go to the 2026 Olympics. Bill Daly did say to Greg Wyshynski that that's a work in progress, and they're going to try to do the World Cup and a full World Cup in 2028. And they can do this now, get into it every 4 years. You have a World Cup and an Olympics, so it's alternating every 2 years. But what they're blaming everything has COVID, the change in the executive director for the NHLPA, Gary Bettman said, was a reason that this got delayed. And of course, what to do with Russia that hasn't been in international competition. So they're going to go with the four countries, USA, Canada, Sweden, Finland, and they'll play 2 games. And then the best team from one side will play the second best team from the other side. They'll have 2 games in North America, 2 games in Europe. And then you'll have a kind of a semifinal and a final. It'll take place over a week. I guess it's something, but I don't know. Like, you got a lot of German players being left out. Russia obviously left out. Czech
listen, I don't care about
talent.
the Russians. The Russians, that's something that, I mean, in the Olympics and a bunch of other things, listen, they sort of made their bet on that. And if the Russians aren't there, and same thing with the Olympics, if the Russians aren't there, whatever. I mean, we shouldn't not do it because the Russians aren't in it. I mean, I do like seeing, Germany, Slovakia, the Czechs, which we would see in a true international tournament. But again, this is going to be somewhat shorter. But at least we have a very good chance of seeing Crosby play with McDavid. And, obviously, I mean, the U.S. team is going to be stacked. We just saw all those incredible Swedes playing and back in Sweden in the games last weekend overseas. Obviously, the Finns have a ton of talent. So I will take it. As I say, it's better than nothing. But this better lead to full participation in the Olympics, which is the true best on best competition where individuals are playing for their countries. They're playing for Olympic gold medals. And I know the NHL won't get all the money. And I do understand that they need to be, like, insurance is a big deal. But they need to figure that out and make that happen. So bring on Canada versus the USA and bring on our conversations about who the hell's going to play goalie for Canada when we go up against the Americans.
Yeah, and I get this stuff with the Olympics. Like, how many times have you seen a highlight of Olympic hockey? Never, because they don't have the rights to them and they don't have marketing rights. And I get that they wouldn't want to send their players to that, but they've missed so much over the last couple of years, and I think part of it is factors out of their control. With the COVID Olympics and all that. So, hopefully they get this figured out. It's probably important to them, to market the game. You see the interest it generates, best on best hockey, but to not have a meaningful tournament for coming on 10 years, extremely disappointing. But it seems like they're obviously aware that they need to get this done, and they're going to do something. So, hey, if it's Canada versus USA, and we can say who's better. Although you look at the rosters, USA, man, they got some really good players. At least we'll have that. So sure, I'll watch it. But that they ruined that World Cup. I couldn't take it seriously.
Oh yeah, listen, we've gone over that about the Team North America. That was, and it was cool. We kind of loved that team. It was neat to see all those young players, but again, it completely diminished the real national teams. And for what it's worth, in a smaller thing, the Canada-USA games here in North America will be amazing. Yes. People will be into it. I'll be fired up for it. And hey, we may as well just get right to the main course, considering, the time that's needed to put on this and stopping the season. And Finland, Sweden, playing 2 games over there will be unreal as well. Those are incredible rivals and 2 great teams. And then, put it together for, a couple playoff games and then a championship game, and then we move on. And hopefully that is the appetizer for what we get when it comes to the World Cup. All right, let's. Ed Tait's going to join us in just a minute. So let's quickly get to see how the Bombers are feeling a day later after cleaning out the lockers today. Probably a really, really long 40-odd hours for everybody in that Bomber locker room after coming so close to another Grey Cup championship, but falling just short. And Zach Collaros was front and center today. Here's how Zach's feeling a day later after the end of Grey Cup 110.
It's still hard to process, when you're in the season, not winning the Grey Cup, you could say it's a failure, and try to process it that way. But we just had a team meeting, spoke with Ocean, as he typically does. Provided us with some words of wisdom on just trying to help us in this moment, and with the understanding that there's a lot of really good men here, and you can lean on the days of joy that you stack up during the season, working together, and because it's hard to find, obviously not just in this league, but just in general, any profession. So you can take solace in that. But reflecting on the game stuff, I haven't watched the tape yet. There's still plays that I'm playing back in my head. Obviously it would, just like you always do after wins or losses. So yeah, it's been tough. It's just like I said after the game, it's sad is probably the right word, because as you know, the team's always a little bit different the following season. So having that understanding makes it that much more difficult.
Yeah, and listen, this team could be a lot different next year. It'll be a very interesting offseason for the Bombers, let's put it that way. Zach, of course, is signed for next year, and quite clearly he would love to see this team run it back. Here's Collaros on that.
My hope is that everybody comes back, obviously. I think we made it was a great run this season. We came up short in the final game, but with the group that we had, it was a successful season, minus the last moment. You can go back to last season as well, and it was basically the same group of guys. So, I think I say the team's going to be different because that's what you say at the end. And there is an understanding of that, and I don't know what management has planned, and I'm sure they're already starting their due diligence with the evaluation process, and but yeah, it's just tough. Whether it's guys moving on to a better contract or a team moving on from a person or guys just choosing not to play anymore. So it all makes it difficult.
And here's one more from Zach just on his season personally from this morning over there at IG Field.
Not good enough. I think as an offense we did some good things. Again, you replay moments, you replay games in your head and plays in the games. I just spoke with Ocean. Like always, he said it really well. The quarterback can replay every single snap because you're always involved in it. So try not to drive yourself crazy. But that's probably why I'm here, because I drive myself crazy all the time with that kind of stuff. So, I'll do what I always do after the season and watch the tape and all the games and try to with a critical eye. It's a lot easier afterward to say, what the hell were you thinking on this one, or all those things. So, but just came up short. And in the end, winning is all that matters. Obviously the relationships you take away from this matter personally, but from the business side, it's the winning. So that we didn't win enough.
All right, there's Zach Caleros, Bomber quarterback. We'll have a little bit more from Zach, as well as Jackson Jeffcoat and Drew Brown. But first, we're going to catch up with Ed Tait. Just before we bring in Eddie, a big thanks to Modern Man Barber Shops for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Folks, if you haven't already made a donation to Movember and our Movember team, if you're able to, please do. Click that link in the description. If you're listening to the podcast, get on over to winnipegsportstalk.com and click the link. The guys are growing the Moes. People are running the KMs, and obviously it's a huge, being at Men's Health Month, it's something that we, with such a male-dominated listenership and viewership, although we love the ladies and the women that support us so well, do want to do our best to do what we can. We're doing it in conjunction with our friends at Modern Man, big supporters of Movember as well. 8 locations for Modern Man in Winnipeg, fellas, and they got you covered with haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. Book your look and make an appointment via modernmanbarber.com and give them a follow on Instagram at Modern Man Barber Shops. And, I came back on the plane yesterday and I wasn't sure whether we were landing in the right spot. There was no snow. We know that winter's about to come, and hey, we will get ready to take that plunge and get back in the pool with Aquatech next summer. Can certainly talk to them about that, for plans for 2024. But right now, whole home renovations start with Aquatech. With thousands of renos as their foundation, let Aquatech upgrade any space in your home. If you're ready to enhance your kitchen, bathroom, or even add a man cave to your home, visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more about their whole home renovations, including financing options. And hey, I got to thank our friends at Manitoba Battery. And you'll be thanking Manitoba Battery as well if you're proactive and make sure that your battery is good to go to get you through what we know is coming, and that is some deep freeze in Winnipeg winter. Right now is the time to get that battery in your vehicle and not have to worry about it for the entire year. And listen, if you're going to get a new battery of any type, do it at Manitoba Battery, because you'll get the best prices in town, beating the pants off the big box stores, with the best service in town as well, as they'll deliver it to you anywhere in the city of Winnipeg with any purchase over $60 for free. Listen, shop local, save money, get it delivered to you. It doesn't get any better than that. ManitobaBattery.com is where you order, 783-8787. And of course, you can pop down and see them for a free battery test if you're wondering how you're doing right now with your current battery at 1026 Logan Avenue. And just before we finish up, a big cheers to our friends at Canadian Club, huge supporters of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and what a season it was, both for the team but also for the fans. A lot of CC enjoyed at the stadium, and CC and Ginger, five straight sellouts. But I'll tell you what, the holidays are coming, and whether you're entertaining or giving gifts, make it the best. Canada's best Canadian whiskey, the legendary Canadian Club. Pick it up at your local Manitoba liquor marts. And don't forget, CC and Ginger premixed cocktails available at your local vendor as well. And this holiday season, remember, always drink responsibly. All right, let's welcome Ed Tait from BlueBombers.com into the program. Eddie, how are you doing a couple days after the big game?
We're still decompressing like a lot of people, right? Huss, it was quite honestly a sad scene around here today, watching guys clear out their lockers, and there's a lot of hurt and a lot of pain over here, like I'm sure there is with all Bomber fans. But It's what you do. That's sports, right? It's terrible to have been in the last two Grey Cups and lost them by a grand total of 5 points, but combined 5 points. But that's sports. It's tough.
It is. And I mean, the 1 point loss last year was sort of I think in a lot of ways, the motivation to bring the band back together and to make the run and try and finish it the way that they all wanted to and expected it to win. And the way that fourth quarter went and that final 3 minutes, and Cody Fajardo, of all people, with a legendary historic Grey Cup drive at their expense, I'm sure the players, much like the fans, still somewhat just shell-shocked and frankly stunned.
Yeah, those are two good descriptors, Huss, and shell-shocked and stunned. It's so cliche, but people always talk about how there's 5 plays that can determine the outcome of a game. Well, there's three plays in that last-minute drive by Cody Fajardo and company alone that determined the game, right? You think of them; they had them in 3rd and 5, had them in 2nd and long, then 3rd and 5. They complete the 31-yard pass, and then there's the touchdown pass. You think of the missed opportunities, the turnovers in the red zone earlier, with the interception in the end zone and Brady's fumble. Those are things that stick out to me. But I think what's frustrating a lot of the guys is, they always talk about being 1% better and play your best game at the end of the year. And Montreal did that, absolutely. Winnipeg did not. And I think that the shell shock is turning into that kind of reality today.
Listen, there's always an autopsy of a game like this for a team with the expectations and the history and the standard that they had set. And it's really it's not one thing. It's not one player. It's not even one series or one drive that you can really pick out. It was, a number of missed opportunities, different points in the game that Montreal, to their credit, willed their way back into the game. Because frankly, Ed, from where I was sitting, it seemed like the Bombers were on the verge of sort of, I don't want to say running away with it, but putting themselves in a position that what happened in the last 2 minutes of the game would not have even been possible.
I thought a really interesting point of the game, Huss, was at the end of the first half with that goal line stand by Winnipeg. I thought, wow, that's momentum, right? Whether it's interrupted by the intermission and the Green Day concert or not, I thought that when the third quarter started, one team just gave away points at the goal line. You can argue whether they should have tried it on 3rd down or taken the points with a field goal. And one team had all the momentum. And then in the third quarter, to Montreal's credit, they just kept punching and punching and punching. And Winnipeg couldn't find any traction offensively. Even said, when Dakota Prukop scored that touchdown to go ahead late, I thought this is going to be 3 championships in 4 years. I thought it was going to get shut down by the defense, and it didn't happen. And again, you can look at the plays missed, but you also have to just tip your hat to what Montreal did. They had a hunger, man. And Drew Wolodarski said it right after the game. He said that watching that Alouettes team, it reminded him of the 2019 Bombers team. They were hungry. And it's not to say that Winnipeg wasn't. It's just that sometimes they hadn't won before, and chasing that, being maybe that smidge more desperate, can sometimes be the difference. And I think that was part of what happened on Sunday.
Yeah, the one time that the Bombers sort of looked like they really had that level of desperation is when their lead had evaporated and they were down in the fourth quarter, and they went there and they got it done. And then they got the ball back. And Ed, we've seen this play out numerous times this season where the Bombers get the ball back in the fourth quarter and they don't give it back. They move the chains, they drain the clock, and then they hug each other and say, move on to the next one. Well, there wasn't a next one. But unfortunately, there wasn't enough, they weren't able to keep the ball, and Montreal got the ball back for that improbable drive. Big picture, though, you've covered this league for a long time. And listen, from a Winnipeg perspective, it is still very, very fresh and very sore, and it hurts for fans and players and everyone around. But, man, the Grey Cup always delivers. And, unfortunately, this is going to be one where the Bombers are on the wrong end of the incredible story. But it truly was a great week, I thought, for the Canadian Football League. I thought Hamilton was an amazing host, the spirit of it. I know you were tied up with the team, but it was a lot of fun in and around it, with people representing all the teams in the CFL. And sports, overall, you're writing stories all these longs. It is an amazing, amazing story for that team. The longest shot going in with all the adversity that they had off the field, the players that left, somehow being the team that ended up standing at the end of the year with the Grey Cup.
Yeah, so you've touched on a couple of themes there, Huss. First of all, a Grey Cup week, it always delivers. It's such a fun time. If fans haven't been and are thinking about it, you got to get to at least one, because once you get to one, you'll want to be going to every other one after that. I can remember covering the 1996 Grey Cup in Hamilton, and that was just after the failed U.S. expansion. And I remember writing that week because it was a narrative is this the last Grey Cup ever? Because the league was on its deathbed, man. It was a horrible time. The U.S. expansion had flamed out. There was nowhere to go. Interest in the league had dwindled so much in the important markets that you just wanted to. I was at that 96 Grey Cup, and it was a spectacular game, that snow game that Toronto won against Edmonton. And you're thinking, is this the last Grey Cup I'm going to cover? So, again, that was in Hamilton as well. From that moment to what we saw on Sunday, just the spectacle of it, I'm so happy that's still alive. And then to your point about the Alouettes, look, it's if I was still in my newspaper days, that's a great story to be writing. There's 3 books to be done out of that, because they were a tire fire. In February, they were a tire fire. They didn't have an owner. Their coach had been fired by Saskatchewan. Their starting quarterback had been fired by Saskatchewan. Their best player in Geno Lewis had left. Trevor Harris had left. Everybody is fleeing. And here we are these few months later. Just for them to make the playoffs was one thing. Then they took down Toronto 16-2. Then they knock off a team that was in their 4th straight Grey Cup. If you can take a step back, and I know it still stings here, but if you can take a step back, that is one hell of a story.
Well, and to top it all off, Fajardo and Moss were the guys that were sort of thrown off from Saskatchewan.
Yes,
and
exactly.
If there is one, and listen, this is tough to say because it's about winning and you care more about your team than anything else happening anywhere else. There are a few Bomber fans that said, well, listen, if it was going to go down that way, the aftermath of this win is being felt here in Winnipeg, but it's also being felt one province over, because, those guys are obviously tied to what's happened in Saskatchewan over the last number of years. And I don't necessarily think it's a good thing, because I do worry about, just as someone that loves the league and wants all the teams to be healthy and the league to be healthy, there's a real lack of faith, I think, in where that Rider organization is going. And as bad as it was leading into the game, I think it's even worse today after what those guys managed to pull off against the Bombers.
Yeah, there's no question. I'm sure that the pain of that win on Sunday was felt in Saskatchewan by a lot of corners. They're going to be a lot of teams go dark now right through December. You'll see some tricklings of signings here and there, and guys coming back or guys getting an NFL shot. But what happens to the west of us in Saskatchewan is going to be the most compelling thing in the next few weeks, up to Christmas probably, is who they pick as their head coach, who's going to lead them, because that's a team that's, again, it's an important franchise in this league, but that's a team that's really under the microscope, especially in that market. They've got to get some things right there.
Eddie, listen, let's focus in on the Bombers now and where they go from here. And before we talk about the player personnel, we all know about the staff cap. We know what every guy that has been part of this Bomber organization probably deserves to be at the top of the pay grade for what they do. How challenging is it going to be for Wade Miller to to keep this group together before we even talk about the players on the field?
Yeah, Huss, that's kind of an underdone story, I think, in this market. The CFL management cap is very restrictive, and I'm really shocked, to be honest, that with the success that this team has had over the last 4 years, that people like Ted Gavaya and Danny McManus, the 2 assistant GMs, haven't been poached by somebody else, that are their coaching staff remains intact. There's a lot of young minds on that staff that should be mentioned more frequently as head coach candidates and have chosen to stay here. But you're right. The further along we get, look, this staff all of them deserve raises. They've been in 4 straight Grey Cups. That's worth something. And you see some. I'm going to point fingers. You see some staffs that have been kept intact, and they haven't been into the playoffs even. So how do you manage that if you're Wade Miller sitting down and you're trying to manage that cap, or you're Mike O'Shea trying to figure out how to get more money for your assistants, and they're saying, well, wait a minute, we've been to 4 straight Grey Cups. What's happening in Ottawa? What's happening in Edmonton? Why are they getting raises and I'm not? And that's just the challenge of it right now, and it's something that. Every year, I don't know how they do it. It's the same with the roster, but they've got the same issues to deal with across the hall from me here with the coaching staff and the management staff. How do you keep this crew together? Because they do an amazing job.
Well, I mean, and that's something that I'm sure there's going to need to be clarity on sooner as opposed to later, because everybody has jobs to do. And a big part of those jobs, particularly with Kyle Walters, as well as Ted and Danny, is putting together the team that will wear blue and gold for 2024. And I think it is safe to say that changes are expected. They're inevitable, frankly. I mean, at this point, when you've had a group that's been as consistently together for the most part, we talked, during the week about how few rookies there were on the club. Much like with the players, much like with the staff, I should say, that have played that have worked at a very high level, these players are in similar situations, whether it's through retirements, players moving on, decisions. Like, how different do you, like right now, and I know there's a lot of time and it's hard to really probably answer the question, but how different will the Bombers look next season?
Well, that's the big mystery, right? I mean, at this time of year, we always, I tweeted out earlier our prospective list of free agents, and it's a long list. And right away, my Twitter responses or the X responses are blowing up. It's like, oh man, look at that list. There's no way. But I mean, the list looked like that last year too, right? And here we are. A team went 14-4 and made it to the Grey Cup again. But there's some other factors in play. You wonder about guys that might get NFL interest. Dalton Schoen might get that again. Brady Oliveira was pretty open today about if he gets an NFL offer, he'd take a look at it. His agent has already been sniffing around or had contact with NFL teams. So, people often ask me, Huss, well, now that the season's over, what do you do in the off season? Well, the CFL is a lot like the NFL now in that it's a year-round business, right? It doesn't go dark for very long. And so you're going to have guys getting NFL looks. You're going to have guys re-signing. There's going to be contract offers with certain figures on the table right now for players. And that money might not be there if they want to wait to test the market. Well, by February, the cap might be massaged in a different way. So it's such an intriguing game how they fit all these puzzles together. But man, if you look at that free agent list, and it's hard to imagine how they can run it back again with the same crew, because it's guaranteed 1,000,000% impossible to bring everybody back. That's just pro sports, but especially so when you win this much and everybody wants more.
We and I think just within the media, fans as well, focus so much on the quarterbacks and the guys that are scoring touchdowns and the big time defensive players. Sometimes frankly, always not probably paying enough attention to the guys on the line of scrimmage, especially on the offensive line. And I think back to Kyle Walters taking over this team and building this club, focusing on the Canadian talent of the team as well as the offensive line. And I've said a number of times on this program and in our previous home that I believe that Andrew Harris might be the most significant free agent signing in Bomber history. And I mean, I'd put it right up there in Canadian history with what he did as a Bomber, but also what it meant to have him here as a culture carrier. And, we saw the results. The more I think about it, though, I would put Stanley Bryant in that conversation as well. And Stan's what now, 37 years old, still playing at a really high level. I'd imagine there's a very tough decision for he and the team right now when it comes to Stan. But I didn't want to overlook, with the potential that maybe he's not back, Ed, to ask you about the importance to Stanley Bryant, to this organization, and this winning era of the Blue Bombers?
Oh, he's been massive, right? No other player in CFL history has won that Outstanding Lineman Award 4 times. And, I covered Chris Walby too. And, there's a guy from the north end of Winnipeg that's an absolute saint in this town. And if you talk to Chris Walby, he says Stanley Bryant is really good. Hall of Famer. So we're talking about 2 of the best of all time. And you could certainly make the case that based on the statistics and the awards he won, that the Stanley Bryant is the greatest. I can't separate the 2 of them because they're both so dominant. But he has been massive for this organization. And I know there's a sense around here that, yes, he's getting up there, but Stanley Bryant at 80% of what he once was is still better than almost every other tackle in this league. And they're so hard to find. So ultimately, I think the decision will be Stanley's to make. If he wants to keep playing, I think there's a place for him here. Maybe I'm wrong, but because I'm not making that call, but I think he's so much of a cornerstone here that if Stanley says, I'll run it back again, they'll say, okay, here's your contract. We'll figure out the numbers. So I think you're right. He's right up there. If you were to make a list of the top 10 most impactful free agent signings in this team's history, he would be right there with Andrew Harris, probably Justin Medlock. I'm probably forgetting a few others, but just a future Hall of Famer, a future guy on the Ring of Honor up here too.
Well, and let's face it. I mean, Brady Oliveira has been, such an incredible story. Taking over for Andrew after he left and, doing what he did this year, being the most outstanding Canadian and many people's eyes, the most outstanding player in the entire league. It was interesting to say that Brady's decisions will also revolve around how much of that offensive line comes back. And I get it, because you're not winning those awards and having that sort of success without those big guys blocking in front of you. And, when it comes to Brady, we'll see what happens. Many people say there are so many running backs. There's so many players south of the border. I'm not sure how realistic that is, but I wouldn't count him out considering what he's done. But the line of scrimmage, particularly on the offensive side of the football, a mass exodus from that group, put it this way, would change things greatly for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, not only when it comes to player personnel before we get to the season, but the ability to continue to operate at the high level that this offense has been.
Right. So there's, this team has had a balanced offense, and Zach Claros led the league in touchdown passes. But look, this team is built on the bully ball mentality, right? They'll pound at the line of scrimmage offensively. They've got some interesting pieces in Tui Eli and Liam Dobson that deserve to get more time too. But who do you put them in for, or who comes out, who doesn't return? And the Brady question is an interesting one, isn't it, Huss? Because I think we talk about how the running back market's been impacted in the U.S., right? And a lot of people in the NFL, it seems like the running backs have been devalued so greatly. To some degree, it's happened here in Canada too, in the CFL, because some dominant players have had to scratch and fight for money after putting up 1,000-yard seasons. On top of all that, you got the ratio up here is such a factor. You've got a guy that was the most outstanding Canadian that had 1,500 yards rushing, 2,000 yards from scrimmages, a dynamite pass protector. That's worth something. And so Brady deserves to get paid. But I think the running back market is an interesting one, because as much as he's Canadian, this team could say, well, we can't pay that, even though, it sounds awful to say, but we can't pay that even though you're the hometown guy. So here's what we can give you. And if he goes elsewhere, then it has to be next man up. It's as cold as it is, but that's the truth.
Well, these will be conversations that we'll continue to have throughout the offseason, and paying close attention to everything that happens, both with the staff, the player personnel, and going forward. Eddie, just before we go, how would you describe, I'm sure you saw a lot of the players together. We heard a little bit about Mike O'Shea's speech to the team earlier on. So what was it generally like around IG Field today as the loss sort of sets in and the players go their separate ways, for some of them for the last time in the building?
Yeah. So after the game in Hamilton, they have in our hotel, they had an area set aside for, you hope it's the celebration party, but even in the loss, there's the people were down there, and so there's a lot of disbeliefs. A lot of players didn't go to that. I went down there, and a lot of people were, trying to relieve their stress, having a few drinks, and that just spilled into the plane ride home. And then today, it's still sad in the locker room. There's still some disbelief, but also, again, across the hall, they're having exit meetings already. I'm sure they're meeting with the training staff about injuries and that kind of stuff they have to do. There's a lot of guys going home already, Huss, because they want to be home for U.S. Thanksgiving. So it's like every kind of possible emotion you can imagine is unfolded here today. It's just it's disheartening. It's hard to take a step back and say, hey, 4 straight Grey Cups, what a great run. But like I said earlier, you lose the last 2 by a combined total of 5 points, and that's going to sting. That's going to leave a scar for a long time.
Ed, thank you so much for all the time you spent with us this week. You're a great friend of the program, and I've always appreciated you talking Bombers with us. Hopefully we can continue to do it through the off season, because there will be plenty of demand to hear what is going on with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers through a very interesting off season. And listen, even with the loss, this has been an incredible era of Blue Bomber football. I think everyone hopes that it can continue moving forward. And a year from now, we can be talking about the Grey Cup and hopefully the team on the right side of the scoreboard. But thank you again so much from myself, Remis, and everyone that enjoys the program.
Hey, listen, thank you guys. Love you guys for having me on all the time and helping promote some of the stuff we do on the site. And thanks to all those fans who keep going to bluebombers.com. We've had a lot of record numbers on our site too. So appreciate you guys. Thanks a lot.
Have a great one, Eddie. There's Ed Tait from bluebombers.com. And again, tons of content there at the site as the team wraps it up for the 2023 season, falling just short in the Grey Cup on the weekend. Listen, Ken's going to join us in just a couple minutes, and we're going to move over to the Jets side of things. We've got a couple of clips that I wanted to play for you just before we get to Ken. And one of them, Remo, let's go with 11, because Jackson Jeffcoat, a big part of this Blue Bomber team for a number of years. The last couple of years, has been available for the Grey Cup, but has missed some time. He talked about overcoming the adversity through his career, injuries, and more, as well as his future post-Grey Cup.
I know that everything will work out. I just talked to a lot of D-line about my story of like how I got here, how I had to battle adversity in every aspect, and that's just kind of what it is. That's what this business is about, and I think that's why it's so important for life here to be able to do this and be able to play this sport and play this game that we love and have it as a job, because some of the things, when you get outside of here, when we're done playing, it helps us for any situation that we might face in life outside here. So I'm comfortable where I am. I'm comfortable knowing that there's a lot of uncertainty. I'm comfortable being able to spend time with my family. Sad about the outcome, but even though we didn't get the end goal that we wanted, I still think we did some really special things this year, and as always, we've built some really strong bonds.
And just heard the tail end of your answer to Judy. Sounds like you're ruling nothing out for next year, including stopping playing.
Exactly. Like I said, retirement's not at the top of my mind, but I mean everything's on the table right now. It's the off season. It's time to really look and evaluate everything.
All right, so there's Jackson Jeffcoat. I know a lot of talk about Drew Brown as well, who certainly performed well when he was in for Zach Collaros at times this season. Here's Drew Brown on his season and his future with the Bombers in the CFL.
Yeah, I think you just, as a player, you just want to get better. You want to improve. And I think that since I've gotten here in this organization, I've done that with the help of, teammates and coaches. And, if I can say, have I done that since I've been here? I can say absolutely. So,
I mean, I know it's still fresh, but you must be excited about the options for you going forward.
yeah, I mean, anytime those things crossed my mind this year, I just kind of shoved them to the back because it wasn't the priority. And as you know, I got some stuff that I need to kind of wrap up family-wise, so that's kind of what's on the forefront of my mind right now. And when that time comes, I'll deal with that. I'm not going to pretend to know the business side of this because this is my first time going through this. So if I'm being honest, I just haven't necessarily given it too much thought.
All right, so Drew Brown, and here's one more from Drew Brown. This is a bit of a shorter clip, but this is Brown on wanting to be a starter.
That's what I want to be. I want to be a starter. I like to compete. I like to play. I'm not going to sit here and say that I like watching, although I think it's what I needed as a young player. But yeah, the desire to be a starter is obviously there. But, I haven't necessarily given a lot of thought as to, what's going to happen in the next few months. I know that I'm going to be home helping my mom go through some things and tie up some loose ends there. So.
All right, so lots of questions about the Bombers moving forward. And, of course, we'll be all over it here on a daily basis on Winnipeg Sports Talk. All right, Ken Wiebe's going to join us. We're going to get back to the Jets in just a minute. Big week coming up for the Jets and big deals coming up from the Winnipeg Jets for Black Friday. The Black Friday deal is on right now. This is a beauty. 2 tickets and a Josh Morrissey bobblehead for $99. The deal is on from now until midnight on Sunday. Go to winnipegjets.com/Black Friday to jump on that. They will have a one-day Cyber Monday deal as well, so keep your eyes out for that coming up next week. And don't forget, listen, if you didn't get in with us on the Winnipeg Sports Talk Pack, they are having the Thirsty Thursday also includes that November 30th. So if you weren't able to join us for all 4 games, jump on that package. $69 for the ticket and a beer. And if you can get close to $316, $317 when you're making your choices, that would be great because the more the merrier when it comes to our WST crew. Cannot wait for that game against the Oilers coming up a week Thursday. And of course, the Battle of the Connors that weekend. You got McDavid and the Oilers coming in on the 30th. You've got Connor Bedard and the Blackhawks coming in on the December 2nd. And I love this ad from the Jets. Connor, and the other Connors. Of course, the Connors that they're promoting are Connor Hellebuck and Kyle Connor, the NHL's goal-scoring leader. It's all there. Check out the Black Friday deals and more at winnipegjets.com. We, of course, are still qualifying, folks, for our big marble race at the end of Men's Health Month with our friends at Vita Health, Fresh Market, and Prairie Naturals. We've got this beautiful Trevor Linden autographed jersey, complete with the certificate of authenticity and the full line of Prairie Natural supplements. So what you need to do, gang, is get on over to winnipegsportstalk.com/contest. Register there. And we'll be announcing qualifiers throughout the next 2 weeks for a big marble race on the 30th for the Trevor Linden jersey and the full pack from Prairie Naturals. Of course, Men's Health Month continues right now, and Vita Health is the place to go for natural and organic supplements like Prairie Naturals, beauty products and groceries, 6 locations in Winnipeg, and online at myvita.ca. And in particular, check out the Prairie Naturals, Canada's #1 line of men's health supplements, on sale all month at Vita Health. Our friends at Wallace & Wallace are the fencing and overhead door specialists in Winnipeg since 1946. I've seen the fences and trucks all over the city. But right now, your overhead garage door, it had lots of ups and downs this summer and fall, but it's about to work a lot harder this winter, because winter puts much more stress on a garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Call Wallace & Wallace to book your inspection and maintenance service. Call today, for residential and commercial overhead door sales and service. There's only one name or two you need to know, and that is Wallace and Wallace. And hey, speaking of great deals, Winnipeggers love them. F Apparel has a massive Black Friday sale that is on right now. Is on right now, both in store and online. Guys, if you need to up your menswear game and improve what you've got putting on coming out of the closet, right now until November 27th is the time to get to F Apparel. Check this out. Custom suits starting as low as $350. Shirts as low as $50. Ties from $15, and tons of great deals in store as well with accessories and more. The best way to do it is visit the website. Make an appointment to come in and shop the sale in person. And of course, you can check out much more and everything F Apparel has there online at that's EPHapparel.com. And make an appointment to pop down and see him at 190 Smith Street downtown. All right, let's get to the Jets. Great run for the club down in Florida. Look at Ken Wiebe. Probably already got 36 in this morning. What's going on? Weber, how are you?
Good afternoon, Andrew. No golf so far, but certainly nice to have some sunset here. A little water in the background. Tried to brighten up the shot here. You know, we're trying to make it look good for the folks on the old YouTube channel. But wandered a good walk this morning. Walked over to the rink, caught some practice. Watched Gabe Balharry get rocked by Brendan Dillon, even though it was something where he was wearing the yellow jersey, but. Scott O'Neill clarifying after that he was inviting the contact, though I guess if you were choosing who you wanted to be hit by, Brendan Dillon probably wouldn't be at the top of your list. But came out of it pretty well. He continues to skate well, and you know, I would say earliest would be Sunday's game against Nashville. It's probably more likely going to be Tuesday, the home game against Dallas, but certainly more strides being taken by Gabriel Balharry. Overall, high joy level practice, no surprise given the way the Jets have been playing. And they've got themselves another stiff test on the horizon, Huss. I have to tell you, I know you just got back from Hamilton. The black and gold was very prevalent in downtown Tampa Bay yesterday with the Bruins in town for a thriller against the Lightning. So certainly their black and gold was filtered around the places around the arena. Did not go to the game, but had dinner close by the rink, and we caught the flood of people coming out of the rink after the game was over. So yeah, lots of energy in the town, if you will.
You know, you just mentioned you went on a walk this morning. All I can think about when you mentioned that is maybe the most famous walk in Winnipeg Sports Talk history, when you seemingly walked to Orlando to get a haircut the last time that you were in Tampa. Got to get those steps in. You're staying hydrated. You know, like listen, you're staying on the program. You know, you mentioned the joy level is high. I can imagine. This has been a great start for the club. And what a homestand they just finished. And listen, I don't think, you know, from what I saw it, and listen, I didn't see the entire game live, but I did go back and watch the, you know, everything that happened in the Buffalo game and the Arizona game on the condensed broadcast. But the Jets sort of survived that third period against Buffalo. But maybe they won in a little different ways. Connor Hellebuyck stepping up with a big-time performance, especially in that third period. And we talked about, you know, a lot of things were going really well for the club, but there was room to take that next step. And we all know that Connor Hellebuyck had another level. I mean, in particular, what did you think about Helly's play Friday night and how that sets him up heading into this trip to Florida?
Sure, Hassan. I would even take that back to Tuesday night. I thought he was very good against the Devils, also in a game where he was tested, especially with a lot more second chance opportunities that haven't been quite as prevalent so far, given how well the Jets have been playing defensively. Two good performances stacked by Hellebuyck, and then a steady showing by Laurent Brossoit as well. That's funny. I was just talking with Adam Lowry this early afternoon, and you know, the Jets were so proud of the fact they didn't give up a single scoring chance. I think just 3 shots on goal in that third period, especially coming after that loose third, as you intimated, against the Buffalo Sabres, where they were not good in terms of puck management. Gave up far too many chances, including the breakaway by J.J. Peterka that sort of changed the complexion of that game. They were so much better defensively, keeping everything to the perimeter. And it's funny, Adam said to me, he goes, LB came over afterward and said, good job, but I would have appreciated a little bit more work for a guy who hasn't really played, who was only making his fourth start. 3 shots on goal didn't quite quench the thirst, if you will. Now, again, he's very happy about the way that they played, but it'll be interesting. And I asked Scott O'Neill this morning, given the nature of the, spread out schedule, over, not just on the road trip, but for the whole 5-game block here, which includes home games against the Dallas Stars and Edmonton Oilers, it is spread out to the point where Connor Hellebuyck could potentially run the table, but I don't see them doing that, Huss. I mean, we've been talking about 25 to 27. I mean, if Hellebuyck even just runs the table on the road trip, that means 4 out of 20 for Laurent Brossoit. And, I'm not great at math and, but I know that 4 times, 4 in the first 20 is going to give you a hard time of getting to 25, let alone 20 starts. So obviously that number's got to go up. I would anticipate Brossoit goes Sunday against the Nashville Predators. I mean, yeah, some things will depend on how the next 2 games go here in Tampa and in Florida against 2 teams that are playing great hockey. And that's not to slight the Nashville Predators either, Huss. I mean, they just had a big win over the Colorado Avalanche. But if you want to get him in the 20 range, you have to play him in those games. So I would expect Brossoit on Sunday in Nashville. Now, again, we'll see what happens here. But, I mean, you would expect Hellebuyck against Dallas for sure. And, based on how Edmonton's season has sort of been swirling around, I mean, you could make the case for Brossoit there, but I would expect Hellebuyck against the Oilers as well. I mean, that's not exactly an easy matchup for anybody.
I'm with you as well. Now, listen, for Brossoit's sake, I mean, I guess you'd like to get him into a game. And I know
you need him, Huss. You don't want to. You need to. What did we talk about this year? You can't play Hellebuyck 68 games.
See,
so
I don't agree.
I'll
be honest. I don't agree with that.
Okay.
Like, you know what you can't do? You can't be in a situation where you have to play him the last 13 games of the season. Like, sure. I'll be honest.
That's why you got to play the schedule now, Huss. That's why you got to play him now.
Like, do we really think that playing him an extra game in November is going to matter in April? I don't. Like,
but you need to get him in the rhythm now. So, like, if you wait too long, you can't get him in a rhythm late. Like, Riddick played early on in the year. You got to play the guys early in the year, or else it's hard for them to get their confidence back, Huss. I just think that I know where you're coming from, and I just think that it's got to be bigger picture here. We've been talking about this. I know you talked about it with Jamie yesterday. If the Jets are a top 3 team in the Central, which it looks like they're going to be, the goal is not just to get to 82 games, Huss. It's to get to 90 plus, and that's why it's even more important to play Brossoit early on so that Hellebuyck has some gas left in the tank. Never mind the last 13 of the regular season. You need him in the playoffs.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and that is what it's about. I guess my point is that, I mean, Hellebuyck hasn't been vintage Hellebuyck so far this year. And he certainly looked good last week. And again, they've had this extra rest. If Hellebuyck plays really well in these next couple games and he's feeling it, I have no issue at all for them to give him the Nashville game and take him into next week and playing those couple games. Because, like, if you're winning and you're getting him back to where he wants to be and where the team needs him to be, that's more important than everything else. Because if you're getting those wins right now, it gives you the ability to play LB a little bit more later on in the season, down the stretch. Like, I just don't know how much we can correlate giving the backup goalies a bunch of starts in November and December as to what happens in April. And the thing that happened last year, which, I mean, it was the result of the team not playing well for a couple of months, was that all of a sudden they were basically in the playoffs at game 68 or 69 of the year and had to keep running them and didn't have a lot of faith in David Riddick. So, I mean, to me, the most important thing in this next 2-week period is getting Hellebuyck back to where he is. Now, listen, if he needs time off, fine. But if he all of a sudden gets on a bit of a heater, I don't have any issue. If the team is winning, he's feeling it, and he wants to go in to play him, because I think what that will do is give them more opportunity to give him the rest that he needs when it makes more sense down the stretch and in the second half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Huss, I mean, let's use Riddick as an example. I mean, in his first 10 starts, he actually was pretty good, but that was because he got into a rhythm early on, and then he started to struggle and giving up a late one. And then the longer the Jets waited between starts, and then there's a turnaround wrister by Kent Johnson here, and there's another one that you didn't like there. Well, then they got to the point where they couldn't play him at all. And now again, I'm not equating Lauren Brossoit and David Riddick. I just think that I understand where you're coming from, and I do agree that Hellebuyck has always been a rhythm guy, but his number needs to be closer to 62 than to 66 for me. And the only way to do that is to get Brossoit the starts early on here. So again, Wade Flaherty is much smarter at these things than I am. I just think I'm trying to think like Wade Flaherty. And I do think that if you're trying to do that, when you're having these conversations with Scott Arniel, I think that Wade is also saying, yes, we got to get Hellebuyck going. But he's also looking at the big picture and saying, well, Brossoit's now played well. He's got 2 wins. Running him out there, again, you have to be able to trust your backup against good teams. I mean, every team in the league does it. Yes, the Jets are fortunate. They only have 7 back-to-back. So, you're not just going to do the back-to-back thing and those will be the only starts. You're still having to get that number, I think, north of 20, at least to 20. So, it's important because Hellebuyck, Connor Hellebuyck's not going to be a sub 900 goalie. Huss. You and I both know that. So does he. So does Wade Flaherty. And if it means he has to play a little bit more to get himself into a rhythm, I've got time for it. I just think that you have to be thinking both micro and macro. And in that regard, I would give Brossoit one of these next 5 and probably sooner than later.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think we all expect Helly tomorrow night. Now, was moving away from the goaltending, Ken.
Yep.
May as well get right to this because this might take a little bit of time. Gabriel Velarde, you mentioned that he's back. He's looking good in practice, mixing it up, playing. He's still got the non-contact jersey. He is, let's just call it a week away.
Yep.
If the same players are available that are available right now to the club, and I mean, I think it's clear that it'll be Axel that'll end up in the press box. He's the guy that got called up when Rasmus Kapari got injured. And Scott Arniel said he tries not to spend too much time thinking about it because it's such a difficult decision. How do you think this looks when Velarde re-enters the lineup? And is it different for game 1 that where it might be in game 3 or 4?
Oh, absolutely, Huss. His slot back in place will be on the second line. I mean, I think that barring something unforeseen with the top line, Alex Iafallo is going to stay there. That's who I'm writing about for tomorrow's piece in the Winnipeg Free Press. And that's not why he will stay there, but he's earned that spot. And as well as Vladislav Namestnikov has been playing in terms of providing great insulation for Cole Perfetti since Perfetti moved to the wing. Vladislav Namestnikov is a guy, part of being the Swiss Army knife is meaning that you have to go down and play on that fourth line on occasion. So for me, Velarde, and Scott Arniel told us yesterday, I mean, he provided enough breadcrumbs. Like, yes, Velarde is an option to be the second line center at some point. It won't be in the first game back. So to me, naturally, it will be Perfetti in the middle, Velarde on the right, Ehlers on the left, and then see how that goes for a game or 2 or 3. You see where Velarde's game is at. He's playing catch-up. I mean, and we talked about this last week when we brought up Ville Heinola. I mean, Gabe Velarde's missed a significant amount of time. This is like training camp for him as well. I like what I'm seeing in terms of his conditioning. He's starting to move really well. As I mentioned, I mean, again, he didn't get rocked like a massive. I mean, it was a solid bit of contact that you weren't necessarily expecting in this morning 5-on-5 drill. But his skating legs are starting to come. Huss. He looks more confident when he has the puck on his stick. Now it's just a matter of getting his wind back to the NHL level. So for me, the reason why you slot him back on the second line initially is because it's not really fair to ask a guy who's missed 6 weeks of action to go in and play 20 to 21 minutes, which is what Scott Arniel leans on that top line to do. So we know that there's been lots of talk about the second line's ice time. And yes, I think that if Velarde is there, the numbers can be higher, but it's not going to be 13 minutes. But I mean, if Gabe Velarde is playing around 15 minutes, 16 minutes in his first few games, that's good on him. That's probably perfect. And then, does he move to center? That we'll see by how Perfetti does when he's back in the middle. And then the other question would be, when do you consider flip-flopping Iafallo and Velarde? Because let's face it, I mean, Velarde looked great. He had the great between the legs pass on the power play to Kyle Connor, but that line only had basically 2 games in a period together, right? So it's not like you have this big body of work like we always saw with Wheeler, Scheifele, and Connor. Now, I still think ultimately Balharry will play on that top line when things shake down. I don't know that it will come in game 3 or 4 after his return, just because of how well that Iafallo's been playing. But like, let's not forget.
Yeah, like
Gabriel Balharry
I don't touch that.
He's the centerpiece of the trade. Like, with all due respect to Iafallo, who has been great, we knew that he was a versatile guy that could play anywhere. I mean, even Iafallo himself, there's no way that he looked at the equation and said, yeah, I'm going to Winnipeg to be on the first power play. No, like, he would have gone there to think, I'm going to be on
Does
the
any
first,
of that matter?
first penalty. No, I'm just saying for him, like, Balharry is still the centerpiece of the trade, and this is Huss. I just think it's an example of recency bias. Iafallo is playing great, but like Gabriel Balharry, not long ago, we were talking about him being a 30-plus goal scorer and single-handedly, replacing the offense that went out the door when Pierre-Luc Dubois went to the LA Kings. So
the funny thing about that is that Iafallo's done that.
Right.
Like, this is a great situation for the team to be in.
For sure. But some of that is related to opportunity provided by Balharry being out. So now that's not to say that he doesn't deserve it. He is deserving. That's why he's got those opportunities. But I mean, here's a guy who's not like us. One of the answers to the Jets penalty killing woes is Alex Iafallo. But right now, because he's on the top power play unit and he helped get them going, Scott Arniel can't take him off the top power play unit until Gabriel Balharry's back. And even then, he may not do it right away either, because he's been so helpful in some of those regards. So I just think that it augments it even further when Balharry is there. And even as well as Iafallo's playing, like, I'm just saying, let's not sleep on Gabriel Balharry here. Like, this is a legit 20 to 30 goal scoring guy. And when he's in the lineup, he will deserve to play top 6 minutes. Now, where those top 6 minutes are going to be is going to be up to him and ultimately up to Scott Arniel.
Is it an automatic that in game 1 he's in the top 6?
Yes,
with the way
Scott
the lines
Arniel told
are
us there
going
yesterday, Huss. I mean, he said it flat out. This is a top 6 player. So, I mean, yes, the Jets are doing a better job of finding their fourth line ice time, but no, I mean, even though, and that's why I tweeted it the way that I did. Yes, today Gabriel Balharry slots in with the fourth line guys, but that's only because there's a game tomorrow, and those top 6 guys need their reps with the guys who they're going to be playing with. It wasn't a hint or a breadcrumb that Scott Arniel actually, even though he told us he's a top 6 player, that he might consider him on the fourth. Like, to me, you'd rather let him wait another 3-4 days and put him right into the top 6. And again, this is why I'm saying that second line generally plays 14 to 16 minutes, not 21, which is why you slot him in with Perfetti and Ehlers right out of the gate. And, even though Gabriel is a guy who is defensively responsible, if you have to go to Vladislav Nemesnikov because something to do with the lungs or how the game is going, that's a great weapon to have in your toolkit, right? So, don't worry. I get, like, Gabriel Balharry's moving well. It's just a matter of him getting his lungs back.
Let me ask you this, just based on something you said before. If he's moving in and Nemesnikov's moving out, why? And the way Cole Perfetti has been playing on the wing, why would you move Cole back to center and put Balharry on the wing as opposed to just trying to literally swap Balharry and Nemesnikov in game number 1 and keep Ehlers and Perfetti doing what they've been doing on the wings because they've been so successful?
I mean, Cole's already taking some of the draws, and I mean, Huss, it's almost like positionless hockey is sort of an overused term, but literally, third guy high is going to be the first forward back. So that guy's already handling the down low responsibilities, and Cole has already done that in the games already. And Huss, to me, this is less about how Cole was unable to handle the job and more about, like, all the pieces of the line are clicking. I'm not blaming Nikolai Ehlers for the first 4 games, but Huss, let's not kid ourselves. Nikolai Ehlers was not Nikolai Ehlers in those first 4 games. So to me, I don't even know that it was as much about Perfetti not being able to handle the responsibility as it was that line wasn't really clicking. So as a result, they made a move that obviously is made to ease the pressure on Perfetti. Now, could you put Balharry there? Yes, you could, Huss, but now it's just put it this way. It would be easier for Cole to slide back into the center position. And again, Balharry will take draws on his strong side in those games anyway. But for a guy coming back after missing 6 weeks, it's easier to bring him back on the wing than at center. That's the best way I can boil it down to you, even though he will have some of those responsibilities. And I've used the word insulation when it comes to Vladislav Nemesnikov. Vilardi's conscientiousness defensively will allow him to provide this almost the same level of insulation as Nemesnikov already is right now. So I don't think there's it's not a huge ask for Perfetti to move back to the middle, nor does it mean that he is going to be playing center on a full-time basis in that regard.
I got you. Well, okay, let's dig into a bit more of Iafallo, because he has been a guy that has done so much in so many ways and has seemed to be, in a lot of ways, a perfect complement to Scheifele and Connor. And I think that the numbers and the success of the team speak to that. The beginning of the year, they were looking at him playing on that third line.
Yep.
Has this time with Connor and Scheifele established him as a top 6 player? Like, does he stay there going forward, or are we again, this goes back to, if he's playing on the third line, then you're mixing up the Lowry line, which has been so great since Appleton and Niederreiter became the regular lines. Like, what do you make Iafallo's position with Vilardi coming in, not necessarily for game number 1, but 2-3 weeks in the future?
Yeah, sure, Huston. I mean, I would say, he's still playing a top 6 role, but I would still put him into the complementary player section, if you will. He's more of a middle 6 player than a top 6 player, but he is a guy that can definitely plug in on the top line and do an excellent job because of his motor, because of his tenacity, his ability to disrupt on the forecheck. And he's got sneaky good skill, which is another thing that, it kind of caught me off guard, in my conversations with guys like Dominic Toninato and Neil Pionk, who played with him at the University of Minnesota Duluth. Like, Neil flat out said he was their best player. And I knew that he had solid college numbers, but his offensive ability is something that is sort of shown up here, that we knew he was a, mid-teens kind of goal scorer. But I told you this early in camp, Huss, I think Alex Iafallo can be a 20-goal guy. And I don't think that's a stretch by any means. And he's also a good passer. He does a lot of the dirty work. He does a lot of the hard work, the things that don't necessarily end up in the box score, traditional statistics. So he's a complimentary player, but he can help drive a line. He's not the play driver on that line, obviously, based on how well Mark and Kyle are playing, but he's not just a tag along for the ride kind of guy. He helps make those guys go because he's got such a high motor, and he's actually pretty skilled as well, and wins board battles and finds retrievals of the puck and things of that nature. So that's my long-winded way of saying that I'm not, it's sample size. It's still it's 14 games. So I'm not here to say he can't play on the top line for the rest of the year, but I also don't think it's fair to just say that line can't survive without him, or that he can't give a similar result on another line. And Adam Lowry said to me this morning as well, he said he felt that in the game before Iafallo got the bump up and Appleton came back down, he thought that he was starting to click with Alex Iafallo and that they could be providing, similar type of impact if he was on that line as well. So, as you know, I said it on the show and was, politely ripped for it by my colleague in Sean Reynolds. I'm still not convinced that Nino Niederreiter is not going to play some top 6 minutes either. And whether that means it's Iafallo going down or somebody else, things happen over the course of the year. And would a coach love to have his 3 lines or 4 lines settled the whole year? Of course he would, but that's just not the way that it works. So I do expect Alex Iafallo to play some with Adam Lowry, and I do expect him to play some with Cole Perfetti because of his skill set is transferable to any line that he plays on. Now, he's making a big impact with 2 skilled guys right now, and I think that he has the skill set that can help Nikolai Ehlers and Cole Perfetti as well at some point if Vilardi goes back up. And I think that if Niederreiter goes up to provide a physical presence with Perfetti and Ehlers and some additional scoring, I think Iafallo could be a great fit on the line with Lowry and Appleton as well. Now, before people in the chat room are going wild, and I'm sure they already are, I'm not here to advocate that the Jets tear down all three of those lines. That would be lunacy based on, a team that has picked up points in 11 of 13 games. That's not what I'm here to say. What I am here to say, Huss, is that because of the skill set Iafallo brings to the table, and similarly Niederreiter and Vilardi, I think that any combination that you roll out within that top 9 is going to be able to have sustainable success. And that's why I think that's the beauty of guys like Iafallo and Vilardi in this trade. And I know that Kupari hasn't popped offensively yet. He still provided that depth layer and element that has been helpful for the Jets. And Kupari's a guy that could move up and down the lineup if he needs to down the road. But for me, Iafallo has been a great fit. And Huss, here's the other part about Iafallo. He screams Winnipeg. The guy is out sleeping in a tent. He's out fishing. He's out hunting. He's out. Everyone was saying when Iafallo got here, oh, this guy's a surfer. There's no ocean. He's going to be miserable here. That could not be further from the truth. The guy absolutely loves being on the prairies in Manitoba. And that's a huge boost for the Jets when it comes to trying to lock the guy down beyond this year, right? I mean, he has this year and next, but I mean, I can see Iafallo, like before he got here, I'm not sure the Jets would have been confident they could sign Alex Iafallo beyond this current contract. And now, based on the opportunity he's received and how much he's enjoyed the community, I could easily see him wanting to lock down beyond next season.
Well, and listen, I mean, all the stuff outside the team and, enjoying, getting out and fishing in the winter and stuff, that's all great and a big positive, and that's good. But nothing's comparing to finding a home with Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor on that top line with what he's been able to do so far. I guess my one question is, if you go back with Vilardi up front and you move Iafallo down, and this is the question that I still don't think we've had the answer, is can Cole Perfetti run as the number 2 center long-term going forward? You seem to be pretty bullish on that.
Yeah, I mean, I also, I think that Vilardi could easily be at center on that line by game 3 if it's not going as well. I just don't think that
I just mean like Iafallo doesn't play center. So I mean, if Iafallo's playing with those guys.
I understand that then for sure.
And Niederreiter for that matter.
It's up to Cole to show that he can do that for sure. I just don't think that the 4-game window was a wide enough lens to say he can't do it. And like I said, if Ehlers had come out of training camp having played 4 of the games and hadn't been hurt, and they were struggling defensively, then sure, we could say that was not a great start. Like I think the underlying numbers even show that line wasn't as bad as we thought they were in the early going. They just had a couple of plays that didn't convert it. You and I talked about it at the time and since. Niederreiter puts in one of those 2 empty nets against Markstrom. Cole Perfetti may have stayed at center for the first 10 games instead of 4. So I'm not saying it was a panic move by the Jets, and it has been one that's worked out very well for them. But, until they get another guy into the system, I still do think it is their intention to have Cole Perfetti slide into that job, whether it's this year or down the road. And I think, the best news for Cole is that the Jets have been playing well, and, the audition could easily continue quickly here. But I mean, hey, if they don't want to mess with it, that's fine. But it's not going to be Vilardi going down, and it's not going to be Ehlers going down. So, I mean, it seems pretty simple that would be the move that makes the most sense. And Huss, we've seen it in the last few games. Nemesnikov isn't even taking a lot of the draws. Like the one night Perfetti had 6 of the draws himself already, I think. So I just think that there's a little more runway required. And hey, I know people in the chat rooms in your place and ours are already wondering about February and March. And should the Jets be in on Elias Lindholm or Elias Lindholm, right? I mean, I'm not saying that they will be, but I mean, that's the other reason why I think the Jets would be smart to try Perfetti right away when Vilardi is back, because you've got several months here to determine or to dictate the path that you want to be on. Like, let's not kid ourselves, Huss. The Jets are going to be buyers this year at the deadline. They already augmented nicely and better than we thought at the time with Nemesnikov and Niederreiter last time around. So for sure, the Jets are going to be looking probably for a D-man, and then we'll see if they need another forward that's bigger than a depth piece. But part of finding that answer out is giving Perfetti a longer run at center. And I think that time is coming sooner than later.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, Kenny, listen, before we go, I got to ask you two things. This is a shorty. Any update on Rucker McGroarty? What are you hearing about him after that injury? He did post the picture with the thumbs up, but he was in hospital. That can't be good.
Yeah, I don't know, Hustle. I mean, it's something, the college injury thing is sort of something that is, I think it's a little bit different standards than what we have with pro athletes, where all the information is quickly transmitted. If I can see Kevin Cheveldayoff on this road trip at some point, I plan to ask him. He was on the phone today at the rink during the practice hours, so that was not a possibility. I hadn't seen anything tweeted by the beat writers of the Wolverines, so I flat out, I don't have an answer for you. And what I do know is that when it is available, it will be readily available. I watched the hit like you did, and countless others did. It looked awkward for sure, but beyond a bruised tailbone or a back issue, I don't know what it could have been. I don't think it was a concussion.
On a stretcher in the hospital. So, I mean, it was obviously something that people are concerned about. I was the same thing with you. I was sort of surprised that it ended up that way. But, hey, listen, I know we've been focusing on the Jets.
Sure.
Have to ask you about a former Jet, though. What do you make of the situation with Patrick Laine in Columbus, Pascal Vincent, and just the Blue Jackets in general, but specifically 29?
Yeah, I mean, we know what Patrick said today. I mean, for those who didn't see it, he said it was the most embarrassing moment of his entire hockey career. And, so we love the honesty, first and foremost, from Patrick. He's a guy who has been honest from his time in Winnipeg and beyond. And obviously, times are tough right now. Hockey is hard. To use a Patrick Laine quote, hockey is hard for him right now. I love the fact that he's back on the wing today. He's playing with Adam Fantilli. That's a good spot for him. I understand part of it was Laine himself wanting to go to center, but outside of him being a big, strong guy, I don't think that's necessarily a great fit. So I prefer him to be on the wing. Playing him with a skilled player is a smart idea. It has not clicked for whatever reason. We would think that it should be easy for him to play with Johnny Gaudreau. One's a great passer, one's a great finisher. How come it hasn't worked? I have no idea, but it hasn't worked. So play him with somebody else. One thing I need to get off my chest here, Huss, and this is just a general annoyance when it comes to us in the media. I hate the fact that we ask coaches to hold players accountable, and when they hold players into account, we say, how the hell can he be scratching that guy? Like, give me a break. You can't have it both ways. If you want accountability, don't go wild when accountability is being held. And I get it. People are wanting to pile on Pascal Vincent, first-time head coach. How can this guy think he can bench Johnny Gaudreau and Patrick Laine? Well, listen to the entirety of the quote. This is not a punitive measure. And Huss, who would have loved to have had Patrick Laine out on the ice for the power play when they went 5 power plays without getting a shot on net or whatever it was? Pascal Vincent would have loved to have him out there. But when you are trying to establish a standard where one player is not bigger than the team, you have to hold those players accountable. And good on Pascal for doing it. Again, I'm not saying I agree with it, but if that's the standard they're trying to set, I understand why they're doing it. I feel for Patrick. He's a great player. He has not reached the heights that he had reached prior to leaving Winnipeg. It was we loved dealing with him when he was here, and I think he could have been a generational goal scorer had he stayed here. But that's all in the past, and now it's up to him to find it, and I expect him to find it, because the biggest thing about Laine, Huss, and you know this from being around him, the whole thing Patrick Laine doesn't care, that is a total crock. Patrick Laine has a huge, huge, huge care and love of the sport, not just a love of a one-timer. This is not a hobby to him, and nobody feels worse about how badly it's going than Patrick Laine, which is why I expect him to snap his way out of it, because of the person that he is and the player that he can be. But anyways, as far as that goes, I get it. From afar, it's easy for us to say, what the hell's going on in Columbus? I mean, they've lost a ton of games. That's bad. But if you're trying to change a culture, I have no problem with people trying to use accountability as a way to do that. And, the player's not supposed to like it. If the player was supposed to like it, you wouldn't bother benching him in the first place, right? I mean, that's
the wrong guy if they're liking it. They're completely on board. We were great stuff. Looking forward to a little K&R after the game tomorrow. Enjoy Florida, and if you do end up running into a golf course, may that putter treat you well. Thanks for doing this, buddy.
My pleasure, Huss. Thanks for having me. Drew Brown will be a starter. It will not be in Winnipeg next year. That's my that is my parting shot here. I do not see a change at the quarterback position, even though I do think that Zach was not at his best on Sunday.
I just couldn't go back to the Grey Cup after
sorry
our
about that, my man. Yeah, I got you.
Couple of years.
And I wasn't wearing red to rub Huss. I wasn't wearing red to rub it in. Valdez, come on. If you got that far, he did the hard part, Huss. He got to the ball. He caught up to it. And then he took his eye off it before he secured it.
Our receivers can't catch.
Sorry.
And back-to-back nights of my team being up 17-7 at halftime and then ending up on the wrong end of it. Well, hopefully the team in red will win tonight. And we got a big soccer game to talk about with Gareth Wheeler we're going to do right now. Thanks for coming on, Kenny. Appreciate it as always.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'll be sending positive vibes from US Bank on Monday too, my man. Have a great week ahead.
Beautiful,
Cheers.
Beautiful. There's Ken Wiebe, all of the latest on the Jets on the road at the Winnipeg Free Press, and of course KNR tomorrow after the game. We spent a lot of time talking Bombers earlier in the program. When we do that, we do it for Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers and Winnipeg Sports Talk. This Princess Auto is where you find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Visit them online or in-store today, and they'll help you make it work. 2 locations in Winnipeg, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Black Friday coming up. Listen, there'll be big deals at Royal Sports. You can take care of all that holiday shopping well in advance and get great deals at Royal Sports at 750 Pembina Highway. Thousands of pieces of Jets merchandise, tons of Bomber gear for the Bomber fan and the family, all 32 NFL teams represented, and a ton of Canada soccer gear as well. Hard to believe it was a year ago we were in Qatar for the World Cup, but lots of great stuff in that soccer fan of the family, wearing that red and white. Get on down. Royal Sports has it all. 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And hey, we got Turkey Day down south on Thursday. Jets game tomorrow, an afternoon game on Friday for the NFL, and then Jets at night. The Bombers are done, but the good times of Boston Pizza are not. Get on down to BP. Enjoy those ice-cold schooners, world-famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, and more for a big, big week of sports watching at your local Boston Pizza. All right, no hockey tonight. We can focus in on Canada's men's national team looking to book their trip to the Copa. So let's welcome in Gareth Wheeler from One Soccer. Gareth, how are you?
I'm doing great. I had no idea. I'm a big Eagles guy. So last night, it was great for me.
Just my luck.
It's not revenge. It's the better Kelsey had to go in and win the game. That's about it.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't know what to say about that game last night. I mean, the defense is legit. I'm still very optimistic that the Chiefs will be there at the end because at some point, some of these guys have to catch perfect passes to win games. But I'd rather lose a game in the regular season than the Super Bowl. And listen, I do have a soft spot for Jason Kelsey, and that's a heck of a team. And hey, maybe let's make a deal. We can talk about this in February, hopefully, that there'll be another matchup between these clubs. But I know your focus is on this big one tonight. Listen, there's a lot of people that maybe aren't familiar with this big series against Jamaica. So if you could, take us back to last week, heading into what was a crazy weekend weather-wise with the game and whatnot, but what's at stake heading into tonight for our Canadian men's national team?
Yeah, it's kind of flown under the radar, hasn't it? I kind of like all that momentum around the Canadian men's national team kind of grinded to a halt with all the disturbances off the field. I haven't played a whole lot of games as well. So this is a home and away tie against Jamaica. It's the final 8 of the CONCACAF Nations League. This is what every federation worldwide has done, try to make more tournaments, more competitive games being played rather than friendly. So it's head-to-head against Jamaica to try to qualify for the Final Four, which is upcoming this March. But even more significant, it comes along with the potential to qualify for the Copa America as they've redone that competition. It's always features the 10 teams in South America, but now 6 CONCACAF teams, so from the North American Caribbean region, are going to have a chance to enter the party. 6 teams are going to play play in it this summer. Game split between Atlanta and Miami. We're talking the world champions in Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay. All the big dogs are in this tournament, and it's vitally important for Canada to go in and qualify for this, to have some big games in the build-up to 2026. So Canada's halfway there. They beat Jamaica Saturday morning. The game was rained out, like torrential downpour in Jamaica on Friday night. They played Saturday morning at 10:30. I came away with a 2-1 victory, which sets themselves up well tonight, playing at BMO Field in Toronto.
It was, I was just looking at, one of the reports for the game, and it had been a hell of a long time since Canada had won in Jamaica. And listen, maybe our expectations of the team are much higher after making the World Cup and, what this team's done over the last few years. But they did something that this group had not done before, and they did it in some pretty bizarre circumstances. I mean, I saw the pictures. I could not believe they played that game when they did. Like, that field was even ready after the way it looked about 12 or 14 hours earlier.
Yeah, it was crazy. We saw the torrential downpour happen, and people were walking around Friday evening with water, like literally on the track that went around the field, with water up to their calf. Like, we were like, there's no chance that this is going to be played. Then all of a sudden, the skies kind of cleared up for about an hour. It was like someone pulled the plug of a bathtub and all the water just magically drained away. It's like Bermuda grass. It's like a completely different surface down there. Then you were kind of thinking, okay, the teams might be able to give it a go on Friday night. And then the skies opened up as all the players were out checking out the field. They all ran inside. It was like no chance. But the next day it was hot. It was like 30 degrees, humid in the morning. So the game, like the field was so soft. It wasn't the most pretty or most aesthetically pleasing game to watch. But yeah, it had been 35 years since Canada won a game down in Jamaica. But get this, Jamaica's never won a game, beat Canada in Canada before. So they're going to try to return the favor here tonight. But it's just because these weird things happen, whether it's climate, whether it's travel. There's all sorts of obstacles in the way of getting a result. That's why it was so critically important. Late goal in the 85th minute by Stefan Eustachio. I mean, they left it late, but job is done. And now they get to play at a place tonight where they haven't lost. Canada haven't lost at BMO Field in Toronto since 2010. So there's a lot of stats that kind of back up and go in their favor ahead of tonight's game.
Following the team so closely heading into the World Cup and being there in Qatar, the Stack Man was a personal favorite. He seems to be a guy that just makes things go for Canada in the middle. And what a massive goal he had. But overall, how close is this lineup right now that we'll see tonight to the team that wore red and white for us in the Middle East last year?
Yeah, Atiba Hutchinson is gone. You mentioned Eustachio. For me, you have a team with Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, players who are, household names in this country. But Stefan Eustachio might be the most important player for this Canadian men's national team. He got injured in the build-up to the World Cup. And I think that Canada's inability to control the midfield at times kind of led to their downfall, because otherwise the performances were pretty decent. They just didn't have the legs or the numbers in the midfield. And that's exactly what this player brings to the table. Without him, they're just such a completely different team. It's the biggest area of weakness for me, central midfield for this Canada team. And he's a player that's playing Champions League football, starts every week for FC Porto, a big club in Portugal, playing in Europe's biggest competition. So he's on the form of his life right now. He's an absolutely sensational player. And for me, everything that Canada does that's good, like, really comes through Eustachio as well. So he's the big addition. Other than that, Mauro Biello, the interim manager who took over for John Herdman's, kind of relying on the players that got them there before. I don't think there's a lot of time to experiment. It's so crucial that Canada qualifies for this tournament that they've had to be a little bit more pragmatic than potentially they'd like to be, but that's kind of the nature of international football. So all the old faces are there: Larin, David, Davies, Buchanan, Vittoria, Larea, like all of these players that got them there. It sounds like the track pants are coming back out tonight for Milan Borjan as well. And
nice.
And the weather here in Toronto has been absolutely miserable all day. It's been pouring rain, hasn't stopped literally since this morning, but 1 degree. So it should make for quite the atmosphere tonight down at BMO Field. It's not so much the cold, it's just the wetness, right? So
just the way the Jamaicans like it. 1 Celsius and pouring rain, I'm sure. Hey, yes. No worries about that. Alistair Johnson, too, is he part of the squad?
He is, but he didn't start in the game on Saturday. They elected to go with Larea playing 4 at the back. Johnson's done really well playing at Glasgow Celtic, but I think that Biello wants a little bit more pace alongside Vittoria playing at right back. And Lorea, who's coming off a good season of his own, has just earned that spot. So we'll see what changes are made. Like, it's a quick turnaround Saturday morning to playing Tuesday night. There'll inevitably be changes. I wouldn't tinker too much because Biello absolutely got it right on Saturday. So Johnston will be in consideration. He came on to finish out the game on the weekend. So there are some options, but I just wouldn't change too much if I was Biello. I think he got it right on the weekend.
Speaking of Biello, interim manager, Herdman's gone to TFC. Tell us about the manager, and is he coaching for the full-time job right now? Or, I mean, how does this go forward, especially if Canada gets the result they're looking for?
Depends who you speak with about what the future has in store. I mean, for all purposes, yeah, he's managing for the job. He wants the job. He's the former assistant coach with the Canadian men's national team. He's managed the under-23s for Canada. He's a former Montreal Impact, or CF Montreal now manager as well. That was the game on Saturday was his first win as a head coach since 2017 with CF Montreal. So he's a Canadian, a former player, understands the players, understands the game. But Canada Soccer, I'm not sure if everyone realizes this. They've had sweeping change in terms of personnel within that organization. Some people have been pushed out. Some change was inevitable, but they're looking to hire a new head in charge, the new general secretary. They're looking to fill that role hopefully early in the new year. And that general secretary will play a big role in selecting who the next manager will be. If you ask me, what would I do? And it's no disrespect to Biello, but I go to get the biggest name manager possible who has experiences building up to a World Cup, understands what to do to get the most out of a very young team with a whole lot of talent. I think they have to be a little bit pragmatic here over the next 2 years and swing big. You're hosting a World Cup. This doesn't come around very often, so I don't mess about with this. And I hope that that's what the next general secretary brings to the table, some ambition here over the next 2 years. And then after that, you can build out the program however you want, but really it's all about 2026 right now.
Gareth Wheeler won soccer with us. We haven't talked too much about Davies. How's he doing? Where's he at right now? And what's on his shoulders as a leader of this Canadian team going into tonight?
Well, his club form is sensational with Bayern Munich. He's played every game. He's as good as they get at left back, but his role within the Canadian national team is completely different. He doesn't play left back really for the national team, and I think he's better when he's a little bit further up the field. He's potentially eyeing his next big move from a club perspective. There's been some talk that Real Madrid might come in for Alphonso Davies, and again, Bayern Munich, massive club, but Real Madrid is on a whole other level. If you watch the Beckham documentary, it's like Real Madrid, Manchester United. I mean, Madrid might be the only club that you can take a step up to from that point. So the fact that Davies is being considered is huge. But he has had his critics in the way that he's played with the national team. He might be trying to force things a little bit too much. I kind of don't see things that way. I just think that he garners so much attention that sometimes he just needs to make the right decision rather to try to beat one or two or three guys. That's how much attention he gets. He just needs to find the gaps, find the space, and bring the rest of the players into the equation in order to help the team a little bit more. So Davies is the least of my worries, quite frankly, when it comes to this Canadian team. I'm expecting another big performance here tonight. But both on the field and off the field, a lot of intrigue in what the future has in store for Alphonso Davies.
Game tonight against Jamaica to book a ticket to Copa, which essentially for folks that are familiar with the Euro, this is essentially our Euro. And I mean, what a big opportunity that would be for Canada to continue to show that they can compete with the best sides in the world.
So we want to see Canada versus Messi, don't we? Canada versus Neymar.
Yes.
It's a real step up in competition. I think it was a little bit sobering when Canada traveled last month to Japan and just got completely outclassed. 4-1 was the final. But if you have ambition to go on and make some noise at a home World Cup, you need to have these kinds of experiences to understand how to bridge those gaps, right? So a lot of prestige comes along with it. So let's go. Let's qualify for that tonight. Get back to another Nations League semifinal, which would be played in March as well, and keep on building this thing out. Get the good vibes back. Like for me, all this negativity around the program in Canadian soccer, these were self-inflicted wounds. It's just we've never been at a better time to be a Canadian soccer fan, yet we seem to like crap all over it from time to time. And I just hope that a positive result, positive performance tonight leads to positivity here in 2024. I think everyone in the game really needs that positive shot in the arm heading into the new year.
All eyes on BMO Field tonight and One Soccer. Fill people in on One Soccer and how they can catch the game tonight.
Yeah, you can actually just subscribe for the next few games. You can go on and subscribe month to month. And at the beginning of December on One Soccer as well, the Canadian women play 2 games. It's going to be the final 2 games. Christine Sinclair playing for the Canadian women as well, as they are playing games out in Vancouver and Victoria. So you can watch, if you're a fan of the Premier League, you can watch on Fubo as well. One Soccer is part of their streaming service. So go on and subscribe. Support Canadian soccer. We literally, shows like this, we go out and talk about Canadian soccer each and every day. That is our mandate. That's what we care about. So if you care about the game, your beloved Valor, who I continue to back and try to hope for a brighter future for. Come on, Valor. We provide you nonstop coverage on One Soccer.
Gareth, always great catching up with you, even after an Eagles win over my Chiefs. But tonight we're all on the same side. Go Canada, go. And man, that'll be fun next summer if we can be talking about Canada going up against world behemoths like Messi and the Argentines, the World Cup champs.
So if it's Chiefs Eagles Super Bowl, are you heading down to Vegas? Are you going to go down to Vegas this time around?
Well, you know what? It's funny. I actually am going to be, I believe, a good friend of mine is getting married, and I'm actually going to be in Mexico for that. I will hopefully get back. I went to the AFC Championship game last year.
Oh, wow.
And I think if things work out, I will make a point to go to the Arrowhead Invitational to see who's coming to Kansas City, which has happened for the last number of years. And then probably be watching the game with, which will be a very interesting experience, not being at the game or back in Winnipeg, but being there. But I think that's the way things are working out. But I will get down to Arrowhead over the course of the next month and a bit, whether it be for a playoff game. I was kind of looking at that New Year's game against Cincy. A little different, though, with Joe Burrow now out for the season.
Yeah, the schedule opens up for the Chiefs, but I will never bet against the Chiefs and Mahomes because the 12th man, the referee, is generally on their side when it matters the most.
This
so
is such fake news.
Things will work out for you, Hustler. No problem.
Mute Gareth Wheeler. Enjoy the game tonight, buddy.
Thanks, pal. Keep up the great work. Cheers.
Good stuff.
Thanks
right back at you. There's Gareth Wheeler from One Soccer. Always great to catch up. And, man, I'm pumped about this Canadian team. I think everyone that was watching the shows last year as we went to Qatar knew that there was something building. And, listen, there's been a lot of BS and stuff that, fans and even most of us have nothing to do with, even the players. But the bottom line is this is a golden age for our men's national team program. The women have been leading the way for the last 2 decades. So with a win tonight, we'll be able to look ahead to the summer, and will be probably the second biggest tournament this group has ever been in after their trip to Qatar last year. All right. I saw Mary Jane asking about our little holiday party coming up at Little Brown Jug. The date is December 6th. We're just basically finalizing whether we're going to do a ticket for it or just have everybody come down. There will be some space limitations, but for all of you regulars in the chat, just make sure you circle that. Raise a little money for the Christmas Cheer Board or one of the charities in and around the holidays. Have a few pops and get together and spread some holiday cheer. So December 6th, William Avenue, Little Brown Jug. And in the meantime, get ready for the holidays, folks. Get down there. If you haven't already, you can try all the great beers that they have and pick up some great gifts or just stock up for entertaining over the course of the holiday season. 1919 generic lager available at Canada Life Center now at the Craft Beer Corner. Section 126 downstairs, section 310 upstairs. And yes, the holidays are even always a little extra merry with Winnipeg's favorite local beer, Little Brown Jug. And maybe we'll see if Nick and Nikki want to help us out with that party with the Pita Pit. New little catering. They do amazing catering. And of course, they have the new Pita Pit in Niverville. You can hit them up at Pita Pit Niverville on X or Instagram if you got some catering needs. If you're in Niverville, make sure to check it out, as well as the DQ in Niverville. And of course, the DQ Northgate in Winnipeg and DQ Polo Park. If you do want to order an ice cream cake or something from DQ, hit them up online at DQ Niverville. All right, let's get Remo back in here. And, Remo, we've really covered a lot of bases today. Obviously, lots of Bomber talk. Great Jets segment with Ken. And got to tell you, I always love mixing in a little soccer, especially when there's big games for our Canadian team.
Yeah, it was a nice tying a bow on the Bomber season there with Ed. Certainly tough conversations to have, but as you look ahead to next season, you have to wonder who's coming back and what's the ceiling for this team going forward, depending on who's on the roster. And with Ken, I mean, you guys are tackling the number one question around the Winnipeg Jets. Where does Gabe Balharry play when he returns? And some great conversation there with you guys as we look ahead to this road trip in sunny Florida on Thanksgiving. So, get a win Wednesday, and they play Friday. The Friday game, I was shocked at the time. I think it's 7 Central, which would be 8 Eastern, which was very surprising. There are 15 games on that day in schedule. Maybe it was like they're trying to stagger all of them, but
big WST DraftKings day that day, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, I've been all over it. So yeah, Wednesday. This is the NHL schedule here. Kind of a today, 0 games. Wednesday, 14 games. Thursday, 0 games. Friday, 15 games, and then it gets Saturday 8, Sunday 5, Monday 6. But the NHL, they have the most puzzling schedule of all the leagues, I find. You're always like, what are these guys doing?
This is always a weird week. I'm just glad the Jets aren't in Minnesota on Friday.
Yes, 100%.
Because, I mean, the nightmares of those Black Friday games in Minnesota, the scars are still there. The Jets have just gotten absolutely pounded in that game in the past. But I'm very much enjoying the Wild playing like crap this year. What are they, 5-8-2 right now to begin the season? And I can't wait to see the Jets go at it with the Wild just after Christmas. I think it's a back-to-back on the 30th and 31st. And that goes back to like old school Jets 1.0 days. The Jets and Wild used to play on Boxing Day every year. And again, the players, because Christmas Day was Christmas Day, they didn't have that extra day. They would come in, there'd be no practice, they'd be all happy off turkey and whatever they were doing. And it was consistently probably the worst game of the season from a hockey standpoint. So that won't be the case. But back to back, I believe it's the 30th and the 31st, if I'm not mistaken. And I think both matinees as well. And of course, we all remember how things ended last year with the Winnipeg Jets and the Minnesota Wild. And that will be, those will be a couple games to pay close attention to see how things go. Yeah. So it's 1:00 in Winnipeg on December 30th. And then the next day, 1:00 New Year's Eve in the Twin Cities against the Minnesota Wild. And just in case you were wondering, this is always fun right now to check the standings of the Central Division. The Dallas Stars, who have been awesome so far this season, they're 12-4-1. They've got 25 points on the season, 17 games, and then 17 games played for both the Avalanche and the Jets, and they are both dead even at 22 points. Avs 11-6. The Jets 10-5-2, and both tied in the regulation and overtime wins. So it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to this game tomorrow night against the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have been sort of up and down so far this season. And then, of course, that was it, a 7:00 game on Friday. No afternoon game. We can watch Winnipeg Sports Talk, do the show. We can pay attention to that Jets-Dolphins game, and then kick off the weekend with a marble race, and then the Jets and Florida Panthers on Friday night. Hey, before we wrap up and get to the Cool Bet lines, not that there's a lot to lay on tonight because of no NHL hockey. Did you catch the internet feud between Mark Spector and Tim Peel? They were going at it in the DMs last night, and then Tim Peel. I don't know. What's your call on this, Reem? Like, let's get a ruling here.
Oh.
On the appropriateness of, now listen, Speck is a little triggered, I think. You know, Tim Peel didn't agree with this question to Connor McDavid. He was getting dragged a little bit. So Speck went at him in the DMs. They went at each other. And then Tim Peel decided to screen cap those DMs and tweet them out for all to see. Fair or foul?
Okay, so here's the question from Mark Spector, Connor McDavid. The Oilers lost yesterday, and I mean, they can't keep
Hate to see it.
Yeah, we're all enjoying their misery. It's super entertaining. I feel bad, kind of, for McDavid, but look, after a game where you lose, you got to answer questions, and I'm sure answering questions about how much you sucked or how much your team gives up goals, it gets old. So here's last night, Huss. This is McDavid post-game.
Are you better off to try to win this thing 4-1 or try to win it 7-5?
You love this question, but I've answered it so many times. We're trying to keep the puck out of our net, obviously. That's our main focus, and obviously we haven't done that, again, for a number of different reasons.
Are you better?
So,
translation, you guys suck at defense. Why don't you just try and score more goals?
And I think Connor McDavid, we don't talk about a lot. He's dealing with an injury. He's not scoring at the rates before. So, like, everyone's getting on Mark Spector for his question. So what? Tim Peel. So what? Tim Peel, the former referee. What? Here's his DMs. So what? Did he tweet out? Sorry, what was his original tweet here? Let me just pull it.
So he got in. He just said, why would he basically just said it's a stupid question to ask him. Just somewhere he was responding. Someone had posted this, and I guess Speck is a little touchy about being outed or having people like that take shots at him. So Speck slid into the DMs and expressed his displeasure with Tim Peel. There it is. What an idiotic question by the media. I feel sorry for Connor. Played his ass off tonight.
Yeah, I mean, he's only one guy. He's not the whole team. So what? So I guess Mark Spector saw that commentary and messaged Tim Peel, the former referee, saying, "Thanks for piling on, Tim. I'll remember that next time you fuck up." And then Tim responds, "Well, it's a stupid question. Of course they'd like to win 4-1. And then I did enjoy this response.
This was good. This was a good reversal by Speck.
He said, "You refs never have the balls to answer a question for your shut-ass work." I think that's an autocorrect from shit to shut.
It could be.
We've all tried to write
PG.
We've tried to write the F word and it writes duck. It's happened to everyone. So I'm sure he wrote shit and it changed to shut. Goes in, "You're critiquing me." And Tim writes, "Quit being so sensitive." And then, what does he say?
Grow some balls, Mark, and then drops in the "never played the game."
Yeah. And then Mark says, "So you're Tim, I'll be Mark. Been around it long enough to know this is Mark, to know a horse shit ref when I see one, Tim. I've been very good to read my whole career. 35 years. Thanks for noticing."
That was a beautiful self-pat on the back, Barry Horowitz from Speck in there. And then Tim Peel goes, "You've always been an effing fraud, buddy." So, I mean, I don't know. Pick your side if you can in this one. But
both huge losers.
Yeah.
Both
what about
terrible.
What about? I mean, I don't know about this screenshotting the DMs. It was initiated by Speck, so you have to think that maybe is. But I mean, does that break? What does the code have to say about that, Reem?
Yeah,
can we get a code ruling?
Like the initial question to McDavid and McDavid's answer, I mean, his defense was, look, they keep losing the same way every time. So I'm going to keep asking this, which I kind of agree with, but I think it's a pretty, I don't know what their relationship is. I think it's kind of donkey move. If someone criticizes you to slide into their DMs, I mean, what does Mark Spector care about Tim Peel? I think it's even worse.
That's the thing. You need to be above that. Like when you're in, and listen, Speck knows this, and I heard Elliot Friedman talk about this, and I do have, there is nothing worse than being the beat guy for a team that sucks, that keeps on doing the same thing over and over again. And it's your job to go into the room afterwards and trying to somehow manufacture a different question for the same bloody thing that you're seeing over and over and over again, which is the case with the Edmonton Oilers right now. That being said, I just don't know. He would have been better off just to block the guy, because you can't be that guy that basically gets in people's DMs, gets all mad, and then is, blocked over. So
yeah, and
anyways, I had a good laugh about that last night, and I knew we'd say
we're
something.
talking about Mark Spector, the Oilers beat writer for Sportsnet, and Tim Peel, the former referee. Their online beef, and I think Tim Peel with the low blow, screenshotting a personal conversation and posting it. I don't know. Is there a two-party consent rule on that? I don't know what the official rules are, but just from being a good guy, I would not do that. So if I was posting,
I will say this. The one other thing, and I mean, if you want to just check it out, because the responses are hilarious, but the glass shattered. Frank Saravelli's music played.
Yeah.
And then Frank came out of the back to respond, "Hey, Tim, nice work tweeting private convos. That's right. You couldn't spell class if I spotted you the ASS." And then dropped, "Paid any visits to berate teenagers in referee locker rooms recently? Remember that with the link to it? Or did you drunk tweet it and delete it like usual?" So it got even messier as many people got into the mud, and it became a three-way dance involving Spec, Tim Peel, and the enforcer, Frank Saravelli, which I loved.
Yeah, Tim Peel, there's some history there. He posted a link to the article berating teenagers in a referee locker room, tweeting under the influence, not ideal. And Tim Peel, if you don't recognize the name, you might remember him as the ref who was caught on the hot mic advocating for even up calls. And then, so again, I think it was pretty low to post the personal conversation. And here's Tim's response for, I guess, fairness. That hurts, Frank. Your buddy Spector has been in the business for 35 years. I'm sure he can fight his own battles. He messaged me because you want everyone else to be held accountable except yourselves when you ask ridiculous questions. No wonder players want out of Canada. And I think Ryan Rashog also chimed in about posting. I mean, we're talking about this Mark Spector, Tim Peel online beef. Like, this is they're both both losers. So dumb.
Rashog, which is hilarious, a TSN guy kind of going to bat for the Rogers guy, but there's a special brethren of the Edmonton Senior Media Leadership Group. It's unlike, I think, any other city in the National Hockey League. So anyways, it was hilarious. We had to bring it up today. If you want to go through the tweets, the replies, it's all there on Twitter, or as Michael Backlund would say, or X.
Yeah, so that was trending. People were talking about it. I think saw it in our chat. Had to address it, but I think they both take the L. Voted.
You got it. All right, let's take a look at Cool Bet lines before we're finished up tonight. Yeah, no hockey tonight, but we just had that great chat with Gareth Wheeler. Canada, Jamaica tonight. Canada minus 189 to win. A draw plus 330. Jamaica to win plus 500. If you want to do it on the spread, Canada minus a goal plus 140. Excuse me, Canada plus 140. Draw plus 260. And Jamaica plus 160 getting a goal. I'm not sure this will be Canada by 2 tonight. They really just need to win the game or even draw, and they'll accomplish what they set out to do. So it might be tough to lay on them, especially with what they're talking about the field conditions being. But anyways, that's up there. Mexico playing Honduras as well. Mexico a huge favorite against Honduras. NBA in-season tournament tonight. Raptors playing the Magic. Raptors plus 2, Magic minus 2, and Raptors plus 115 on the money line. Lakers are playing the Utah Jazz tonight, minus 7.5. And we didn't do any exclusives today for the Lock Shop, just because Lock Shop was real fun today. Dusty and I talked a lot of Grey Cup, last night's football game, a little bit more. But Canada to win versus Jamaica, and the Lakers to win versus the Utah Jazz plus 120. So let's ride to the EST guys tonight on that. And it'll be fun. We can watch the soccer game. Hopefully Canada wins. And then I'll have to hold my nose and cheer for LeBron and the Lakers against the Utah Jazz. But hey, it'll be a fun day to pull that off with the boys at EST over at CoolBet. But hey, another great day to get some rest, recuperate from Grey Cup, and then get ready for a big show tomorrow, Reem, and a big game as the Jets hit the road taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning, trying to continue their winning ways.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the comments. You guys are talking about this Mark Spector, Tim Peel beef. Must be a slow news day in the NHL. Yeah, there's no games today, so that's exactly why we're talking about it. And yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do tonight. Probably continue unpacking. Got to do some laundry. Yeah, we'll see. Post that video. You and Ken. Yeah.
I haven't even looked at my my bag yet. I just pulled out my toiletry bag, and other than that, I've been basically horizontal, except for doing the show and watching the Chiefs since we came back. So yeah, I'm with you as well. Yeah, that Ken, great segment with Ken today. We'll have to get a couple tweets up about that for people that missed the show live, still not wanting to come back to the daily WST show because they don't want to talk or acknowledge what happened on Sunday at Tim Hortons Field at the end of that game for their beloved Blue Bombers.
I know it's hard to listen and relive it, but it's good to have these conversations that helps you move on. And I needed Ed here today, Huss. I needed to hear what
Ed was
he had
great.
to say. I needed it, and I need to hear about the locker room and team moving forward. A great group of guys, great team. Could not get it done, but it doesn't, take away the 50 burgers all summer at IG Field, because they're certainly fun to watch. But I am seeing people in chat who it still hurts, man. It's gonna hurt for a while, especially as what is the parade tomorrow, and I'm gonna be seeing Cody Fajardo,
Marc-Antoine Decoy. Just wait for his speech at the that might give Jason Kelsey's Super Bowl speech a run.
I don't want to see it
tomorrow in Montreal. Yeah, we'll avoid that. I'm blocking everything Montreal.
I should mute.
Mute, block, whatever for the next 48 hours. Great show today, folks. Thanks to all of you for joining us today. Don't forget, get to winnipegsportstalk.com/contest. Get your name in. We'll pull a couple more names tomorrow for marbles for that November 30th race. Is Marat coming on tomorrow?
I just texted him. I haven't heard back.
Okay, well, we'll do Marat or Billick tomorrow. We'll have plenty, and we'll actually have some audio as well from the team after the morning skate tomorrow, heading into to tomorrow night's game.
Hey, as we wrap the Grey Cup, we didn't mention this. Let's say the Bombers get a first down there and run out the clock, or they punt and then stop. Who's the MOP? It's Prukop, right? Prukop's got to be the MOP. He was a beast. Automatic on short yardage.
It's not going to be Prukop.
That was my pick.
Over Brady Oliveira?
I guess he had 100 yards, and he probably would have ran it out.
119 on 19 carries. But, Prukop very quietly did have
automatic.
Have a big game.
The Bombers invented the tush push with Prukop. These Eagles stole it from them. There, we can end.
Amanda, great show, guys. Thank you, Amanda. Always appreciate that. And Waiters just said Gregory Liverpool challenged Derek Taylor on the coaches show last night on the MOP. That I might have to go back into the CJOB audio vault to check that out.
That's why I brought that up. I just wanted to get that Prukop take in there because no one talked about who was going to be. I guess it would be Brady. He had 19 carries. He would have had more yards maybe if they would have handed it off.
Well, I don't know if you were listening, but in the ride back on the media shuttle from the game, and I don't know who the guys were up in front because it was dark and we were a few rows back. Yeah. There wasn't many other people on. They were saying that the voting was done. And this has happened a number of times probably in the last few years that they vote, okay, the Bombers are up, here's the vote. And then all of a sudden, Cody takes them down.
Yeah.
And they scored in the last bit and they had to re-vote. Brady Oliveira was going to win the MOP and the MOC.
Prukop get any votes?
I did not hear about any support for Dakota Prukop and his amazing short yardage performance in the game.
Man, automatic. That was so automatic. Hey, not automatic for Montreal. They couldn't punch it in from the 1. Bombers, no question, anytime. They would go and put him in on second down from the 3 and just run him into the zone. So,
man,
I was going to vote
like
Prukop.
TMZ. Yeah,
2 touchdowns.
Maybe there'll be some more hockey beef on the internet tomorrow that we can talk about. Choose your fighter: Mark Spector, Tim Peel, with enforcer Frank Saravalli. Great stuff today, folks. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll get those pods up. Don't forget, check out Winnipeg Jets this week. New episode up. Shout out to Connor doing a great job with that project for us. And have a great night tonight. Go Canada in the game against Jamaica. And we'll see you tomorrow to get you ready for Jets and Lightning and kick off this road trip on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Have a good one, everyone.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.